has broken, and it is Thursday, November 5th.
And we're your consecrated hosts.
I am Father Jeff Lowski, consecrated by holy baptism and holy orders.
I am Jonathan Sanchez Hidalgo, consecrated by baptism and confirmation.
Here we are, coming at you from the studio offices of this place.
I feel like
How you doing?
death.
Why? Oh, because we're talking about
Because we're talking about death.
We're talking about death and dying and judgment and heaven and hell and this month of November, remembrance of our beloved dead.
It's quite apropos.
So, what's new and exciting?
Well, yesterday I showed the video of Joshua tooth. Last night at dinner,
Yep.
Joshua eating, started crunching on something. Another tooth. Remember, I said the two teeth were ready to go.
The other one fell out
The other
without
one
the
fell
need of firearms.
Correct.
Look at that. They just happen. It just falls out naturally.
Yep.
These are things that can be done. But what a memorable experience.
Yes.
So, the Tooth Fairy come again?
Mm-hmm.
And what did the Tooth Fairy bring this time?
$5.
Good Lord.
Well,
I think a tooth is about worth $1.
that's why you're a priest. You don't know these things. You've been...
Staples
Who knows?
didn't get any money for his teeth when he lost them. Oh, I have his baby teeth somewhere. I should have pulled those out and showed them on the show today.
I think we're all better for it.
I'll bring them tomorrow. Got to remember where they are.
Yeah, and Joshua's birthday's coming up in 5 days.
Holy
November 10th.
moly!
So he's going to be 6.
What does he want for his birthday?
Oh my, what does he not want for his birthday?
Well, he probably doesn't want a new car.
Oh, he would take a Power Wheels.
Oh, I'm sure. He probably doesn't want a jump rope.
He did not ask for a jump rope. So yes, there are things he does not want.
Yeah.
A dollhouse, things like that.
Oh.
But
What are you getting him for his birthday?
I'm not giving any
watching.
spoilers.
He's not watching.
Who knows?
He may come into the office when you're working on it.
Things can come around. Yeah, I might be picking him up and...
And all of a sudden, boom, there it is.
What are you getting Joshua for his birthday? And he listens.
Well, I got nothing special going on.
No?
Not really. Just another day in this week.
Well, we got First Friday tomorrow.
It is First Friday.
And we do a little something different for First Friday. I don't know if I don't know if we've talked about our First Friday stuff.
We do something different. Well, not. Yeah, I guess
A little bit different.
First Friday, we have it's our devotional weekend. So the devotions of First Friday, First Saturday. We probably talked about it at some point. But we have an evening mass at 7 p.m., which concludes with exposition of the Blessed Sacrament. And then there's so Mass takes about a half hour, and then we have a half hour of kind of formal exposition, Holy Hour. And our parish prayer team is available there, and they're praying for the needs of people, and they're praying for the people that are gathered there and the needs of our parish. And they have a little station in the back that if you want to bring your intentions to them verbally or even just quietly, and to be prayed over and to be prayed with. They're very good. They do that. They meet monthly for formation and spiritual growth, and so they are really, really good at what they do.
Yeah.
It's always good to be prayed with and prayed for. And then adoration continues overnight and through the darkness, and people sign up for hours. You can sign up for an hour, still right here.
Yep. This reminds me, I need to turn the alarm off.
Turn the alarm off, Jonathan, so people in the church do not get
A visit from the police.
threatened by the police showing up and escorting them out. And then Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, we have First Saturday Rosary, followed by First Saturday Mass. There's our devotions.
But I'll be out of town.
Where are you going?
Kansas.
What's in Kansas? You going back to IKEA?
Ooh. No, that's Kansas City. We're not going to Kansas City.
You're
We're
not
going down to
going to-
Wichita.
What's there?
My brother-in-law lives there, and they had a new baby.
Oh.
Their third little girl.
Wow.
So this is Lucy Madison?
Okay.
It's at least Lucy. We'll go with Lucy, baby.
And
Lucy.
then some middle name. Some state capital. Lucy
president.
Jefferson City.
President.
Lucy Montpellier. Lucy Pier. Lucy Lincoln.
This is what I have to work with.
Oh, how many states and capitals can we name? Let's not go there. I could probably get most of them.
I think, given the...
There's a few that I always get confused on, like the major city and the capital city. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot that capital city.
Yeah, I would say 47 of the 50 I'd be good for, probably.
Alaska.
That's Juneau.
Hawaii.
Honolulu.
Washington.
State?
Washington State.
Isn't that... No, that's Salem's Oregon. Oh, Washington State.
Da-da-da.
Is that Montpelier?
No, it's Olympia.
Olympia, Washington.
I know, it's one of those like, oh, who the heck has ever heard of Olympia? Unless you live there. Hi, Olympians. Jonathan, we got to get to some death.
Death.
So, as we talked, the month of November dedicated to our beloved dead, keeping them in prayer. And we thought we would use this time also to reflect upon the four last things and death and dying and the funeral rites, and not because it's morbid, but because it's part of our life as Christians. Mm-hmm. And in order to live a good life, you prepare for a good death. And because that's the gateway to an even better life. So if you kind of ignore that whole middle thing, then you're not going to probably live this life well because you're not thinking about that life.
Yeah. If you don't live as if you were going to die
today,
you're not going to live as if you're ever going to die.
Wait,
so it's...
Yeah, I mean, maybe you would. Maybe you're that exceptional person, but I'm not. And so thinking about judgment and death and, standing before the Lord and what's going to be revealed is going to be, I want to be ready for that. And I don't want to be frightened of it. And I don't want to doubt or question or all of those things. So how do we live this life? Right. That's what we're going to look at.
We prepare for everything else in our life. If we're going to have dinner, we might be unprepared, but before you start eating, you thought of something. Even if it's late preparation. It's like, oh.
Yeah, you might do it at the last minute.
We're going to go to
let's order a pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's like, okay, I got to go to the grocery store and buy all of these ingredients because we're going to make this, grandma's recipe, and so we want to have everything ready to go and da-da-da-da-da. Yeah.
A Thanksgiving feast. We're in November.
It is.
Thinking of a Thanksgiving feast,
you don't just
show
throw
up
it together. Again.
You don't coordinate with... If you don't coordinate with your family members, everybody's going to bring one of the terrible sides.
Are there terrible sides? What? Oh.
We're going to save this for Thanksgiving when we get closer to Thanksgiving. Because
okay. I'm not doing a show with you on Thanksgiving, Jonathan.
No, but it'll be the last one before Thanksgiving. Okay. I have a hot Thanksgiving take.
Can you explain to our listeners what that is?
A hot take?
Yes.
It's a point of view, that's the take, that can be deemed controversial by many, but approved of by few.
All right, well, we'll see if you remember.
Oh, I will remember. I feel very strongly.
He's probably one of these guys that's like, I don't eat turkey on Thanksgiving.
Oh, no, you eat turkey on Thanksgiving.
All right, fine. Preparing for a meal.
Preparing for a meal. Preparing for death.
Preparing for death. Absolutely, that these are things that we have to do, because if you want to be ready, there are certain things that you can do in the meantime. So let's kind of just talk about, the four last things. And why do we call them the four last things? Because there's nothing after them. They are literally the last things before eternity, or into eternity. Death, followed by judgment, two kinds, followed by heaven or hell. And you might say, but what about purgatory? But purgatory is not eternal, and so it is not one of the last things per se. It's perhaps wrapped up in there in judgment. So when we talk about judgment, we'll give a nod towards our friend, Mr. Purgatory.
It's just part of the process.
Yeah, it is. Purgation, the purgation process. So death. We've talked about death before in various things and contexts, and the separation of soul and body. It is not what God intended.
Nope.
That human beings. So when you think about the hierarchy, the order of creation, you have inanimate objects, things, rocks, things that don't seem to be alive,
Right.
and probably are not alive. Then you have objects combined with a soul that merely gives them life. Kale, for example, a carrot, an elm tree, plants. They have this vegetative soul that basically gives them life and causes them to grow. So clearly different from a rock, but still bare minimum soul. Then you have those bodies that have a soul that seems to be a little more animated, and so we call them animals. Go figure. So that an animal whose body seems to have a soul that now is more reactive, animated. I don't know what else to say. That's probably a good thing. Then you have those bodies that have a soul that's more than just movement, but invites rational thought. So the irrational soul in the animal and the rational soul in the human being. So this joining of body and rational soul. And then you have those creatures that are pure rational soul. And then you have God himself that is pure being. Pure spirit, pure being. So here's this hierarchy of whatevers.
Yep.
Being. And this we are a union of body and rational soul. And so we are put together to become something unique. And when that is taken apart, it's like now we fit into none of these categories. There's something messed up with that. There's something wrong with that. Death, not what God intended. But your fault, Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I sinned.
Your ancestor
I ruined
sinned.
it all.
Your great, 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 to the nth degree, grandfather and mother sinned grievously. And now we all have to pay the price for Jonathan's forebears. Adam and Eve, Sanchez Hidalgo. Those two.
But
What?
all of your ancestors did too, so
Are you sure?
I'm positive 100%.
I think it's funnier my way.
Probably.
Anyway, those two were in paradise. They were living the life. And then they are disobedient to God and to one another. And sin enters the world. And sin is the corruption now of our relationship with God. So I always like to describe it as a fan plugged into the wall. Plug that fan in. It's moving, it's blowing cool air. Or now if you go into Jonathan's office, he's got his portable heater sitting there under his desk, just blowing warm air at him because this man is...
Not this week. This week it's been, no.
In the mornings.
It's cold in the mornings.
It's
It's cold in the
chilly.
mornings.
Yeah, just a little bit.
I had
Then
it on
warms up
yesterday
and it's
morning.
beautiful. I know, it's ridiculous. You walk in there and it's like, oh.
It feels like...
As soon as you unplug it from the wall, though, it's like... There's a slow closing down and a stopping. And that's really what death is. It's when we sin, we've pulled ourselves away from God.
Yeah.
And that even though we still seem to have life within us, it slowly leaves us and we die. Just like an appliance. Now we're just an object, our body.
Wow.
So there's death. Death is the separation of body and soul, not what God desired, but what is the consequence of our sin, sad though it be.
And we're left without the animus.
Yeah, so you don't stop being you. I mean, you stop being you as a human being.
Whole.
Exactly. You're no longer a human being, but now you are your human body and your human soul that has been separated. And this is why this is not as bad as it could be. Let me tell you how it could be worse. That in sin, the body and the soul are separated, and the body decays and the soul decays.
Oh.
And then there is nothing. You cease to be.
Annihilation.
Yeah. God did not desire that.
No.
And so when his son took on our human body, and when he died, the body was laid in the tomb, the soul entered into the realm of the dead, and said, stop right there. We're not going to allow our souls to be corrupted. Anybody who wants to follow me, let's go and get out of here. And then his soul joins back to his body, and he rises again. And anybody now who wants to follow him, washed in the waters of baptism, salvation, our souls are reborn to incorruption. So now the soul does not die eternally, i.e. hell. The soul has the opportunity to live eternally, i.e. heaven. So it's not as bad as it could be.
It's not as bad
It's still,
as it could be.
There it is. Death is the separation of body and soul. But the soul is still alive. And the soul retains all of its properties, all of its powers. And I think we've talked about the powers of the soul once before. Memory, intellect, and will. That we retain those powers even as a soul. So a soul separated from the body still knows itself, still remembers, and still chooses, or could choose if it lived in time. But now it's out of time, and so it's like, I'm waiting.
That's where the preparation comes in.
Preparation. Be ready to go.
Because that preparation, I don't want to say that you, good grief.
Say it.
Pavlov's dog is a condition.
Yeah,
the soul.
conditioned response?
Yeah, you I don't want to say you condition the soul to choose God or to choose heaven, but like
I think you do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can use that.
Yeah, I think that's the we would call it theologically sanctifying grace that builds up virtue that is a habit for good. So it is, yes, you could use it.
Okay.
Yeah, some of us would speak about things in spiritual terms, others would speak about them purely in worldly, secular terms.
I'm trying to make it so they can.
Death brings me such joy, apparently.
Oh my gosh.
I was thinking about that. Side note. Now I'm going to take a tangent. It's not really a tangent. I don't know why I was thinking about that the other day. But I was like, when I'm dead and gone, how do I want people to remember me? If anybody does. And I was like, what I would like, what I aspire to is I would hope that people would know me as a person of joy. That is like my goal. I want to just, that this world doesn't drag me down, that sin doesn't conquer, that constantly with hope and looking forward to those good things and just living life to the fullness, I just want to be a person of joy. Is that ridiculous?
No, that is actually what we should all strive our lives to be.
So that's, if there's just, the fruit of the Spirit that I think I long for, or that not long for, but that most attracts me is that spirit of joy that there is, and I think I do find myself preaching a lot about that. When I listen to my own words coming out of my mouth, because a lot of times you end up preaching first to yourself, and you guys all happen to be hearing what I'm saying to myself. And this is just, I do preach a lot about, the world has no power over you. You can choose peace, you can choose happiness, you can choose joy, and just enter fully into that and let the Spirit well up, and it's a wonderful thing.
I'm either hot or cold. I'm either joy or doom and gloom. I am both extremes.
I'm a little moody too.
Yeah, well, none of that in between fluffy stuff. It is pure unbridled joy, or if you don't straighten up, you're going to hell.
Wow.
And that's what works for me. Because it's like, well, I don't want to go to hell. I'm going to straighten up. But then you can do it joyfully, which is the
He's
most
either Red
beautiful.
Bull or cold brew.
Oh, I'm either Red Bull or asleep.
Yeah, that's true. See, he's a man of extremes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite that. I have my little dips of moodiness. But that's why it's like that's a principal temptation, I think, against that call to something to something more. That if I desire, if we want to live in joy and to reflect the goodness of God and His Holy Spirit, well then of course the temptation that's going to come in is going to be anti-joy, anti-living in the Spirit, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. And God didn't design any of it that way.
No.
Because joy is... Well, joy, I talk about the doom and gloom. Either you're going to hell or live joyfully. Like, by living joyfully in Christ, let's make that... You can't live joyfully outside of Christ.
True.
Actually. But by living joyfully in Christ, you will not go to hell.
I would concur with that. If all of those things are true statements, yes.
Yeah, authentically living
Absolutely.
joyfully.
If you are living in Christ, in the Spirit, joy is present, and you are... Yeah, and joy is not just some giddy happiness.
It wasn't what Father Jeff just said.
It wasn't that. That's not real joy. But it's related, It
is.
That there is some countenance amongst, there is something about your person that people can say, that is clearly a person who is seated deeply in joy.
That was a symptom of his joy.
A symptom of my joy, yes. Death. So back to the taking apart of these things, that we prepare for that. We live for it now. It's like, okay, how do I do that so that my soul is conditioned? As you were describing that I live in this virtue, this grace, that when this happens, all is not lost. That I'm still focused on God, because that's now it's kind of like you rev up a machine or something, then you set it to go and you want it to coast the rest of the way. And that's kind of it. It's like, I'm going to get myself as far as my energy takes me, and then when the energy runs out and I'm separated from my body, my soul continues to coast in the right direction. Which direction am I coasting in?
You said it's will, memory, and
Intellect.
choice? Intellect.
Will is choice.
Okay.
Yeah, so the ability to choose, the memory, and the intellect, that rational property.
That's what our whole life we're building up.
Correct. You make good choices. You want to form your conscience and your will and to know God so that you can love Him and that you can serve Him so that you can be with Him forever in heaven. I mean, those of you who know your Baltimore Catechism, to know, love, serve God so that you can live joyfully forever in heaven.
Beautiful. Now, a lot of people might say, well, memory, how is that the soul? Because it's your brain. But it's a very spiritual thing. It's not... a scientist can't go into your brain and be like, there's that memory. It's not like Inside Out, the Pixar movie, where they have little orbs that hold each every memory.
Right.
But it's a spirit,
It's a nexus of body, because remember, we are body and soul. And so the soul communicates itself through the body, and particularly the brain is the organ of the body that communicates with the soul's memory, intellect, and will. So the powers of, our brains are different in not just in degree, but really in kind with all of the other creatures. There's something that our soul is able to be communicated in this kind of brain. And so when the brain is damaged, it limits the ability of the soul to communicate. It's just like if I were talking to you on a damaged cell phone or where I'm not getting great reception, I am still saying everything, but this device is not communicating it so that it is received and heard on the other end. So my soul possesses all of these things. The brain, in its damage or its deterioration, sometimes isn't able to articulate that and put it out. The body fails. Falling apart, remember.
Can you hear me now? That's an old cell phone joke. Commercial.
It is.
Back when reception... I think most people don't have issues with reception anymore.
Yeah, it's...
certain places.
It's pretty ubiquitous. We're probably all dying of radiation right now because of it.
Well, at least we're preparing for it.
Joyfully. Oh, my goodness. What were we talking about?
Heaven, hell.
We didn't get to heaven and hell. We're still in death.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get us.
Well, we might cover some of this tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
We still have tomorrow. The week's not over yet.
That's true.
Let's not, we don't have to explode it all today. So we get through death. What happens then in death? We don't really know. It's one of those things that's not documented very well. You have all kinds of near-death experiences. So maybe we could talk a little bit about do you know of anybody who's...
Not personally. I've heard of, those people who have seen the light, talked to Jesus. I'm not ready to go yet. Other things like that. It's hard. I'm sure there's some validity to them.
Here comes the skeptic.
Yeah, but it's also hard for them to even describe what was going on because it was an out-of-body experience, out-of-this-world experience. And so you cannot describe something that's indescribable with the senses that we have. And so...
Right.
It makes... That in itself leaves for some skepticism because...
Right. Yeah, the near-death experience, and I've read a couple books. I remember Father John Newhouse. He was kind of a Catholic powerhouse, and he was an author and publisher, and I read his near-death experience that he described before he died, and several others. But, and it's one of those things that it's tough to know for certain. Because, again, the brain and the soul are interwoven. And it seems that in death, the brain, in a sense, begins to do things to preserve the mind, that place where body and soul come together, to preserve that from great shock. And so it does seem that, the brain all of a sudden reaches back into memories or creates, things, or even that tunnel of light experience or whatever, that some of those things are purely neurological, that it's happening in the brain, communicating to the soul. But that's not to say there isn't a spiritual component to that. So I don't want to say it's all a spiritual experience. I don't want to say it's just a somatic or bodily experience, but it is. It's probably a confluence of the two. So we don't know a whole lot about them. That those things are never put forward as faith, and some people will say, well, how would this person have possibly known this, that, or the other thing? There's lots of ways to explain it. Our subconscious hears a lot of things. So even if, it's something you never were told and somehow you knew and then came back and asked that question, I didn't know I had a twin sister, that died in birth. I didn't know that this, that, or the other. But they may have retained a memory of that in infancy when you were talking about that, and you had no idea that memory was now stored, and the soul hears even when the body is incapable of totally processing. So there are things that are known. So I don't know. We're not here to put a seal of whatever on these sorts of things.
The church doesn't do it. We don't have to.
No, we do know that maybe these are all signs, and again, like any spiritual experience, take from it what is beneficial and leave that which is not. And so it really does now become part of your prayer and your relationship with God. Like what in there can I use to continue now to live my life? Because obviously I'm alive. If I'm thinking about this near-death experience, where do I go with it?
And God certainly uses those opportunities too.
Absolutely.
There's
it's kind of like a dream.
Yeah.
But
God will go in and weave himself into those things. And even if it's, let's say it was just strictly from your brain.
Yep.
God will use that as an opportunity to reveal himself.
He could.
And if you see into that, more power to you, and God bless you.
Yeah. Yeah. And we know that they're not 100% accurate because there are things that have been seen that we know by faith just aren't part of, the equation. We don't have to get into those things and stir up some hot takes, but some controversial opinions. But yes, in that moment of death, we hope to begin to continue the journey we're already on. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of maybe where we'll go tomorrow. It's like, what happens then immediately after death? What does our faith tell us? We don't exactly know the experiential, what is the experience of it, but we can ask, well, what happens after that? What happens in the moment, when that happens? If you're old enough or have watched the movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze, when it was this imagining of what happens when the body leaves the soul, and is it even aware of that? And And it's an interesting reflection upon finding one's way to the eternal afterlife.
My mom took a dance class with Patrick Swayze's mom.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Did they do the little,
I don't know.
the
I know
dirty
she took a
dancing?
dance class with his mom, so she met Patrick Swayze because he was in the studio or whatever.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
But that was before he was famous or any of that, just because his mom was a teacher and she, yeah.
All these little tidbits. Who knew? 6 degrees of separation. I'm sure Patrick Swayze knew Kevin Bacon, and look at that, you're connected to Kevin Bacon. 6 degrees.
6 degrees.
Doesn't take much. All right, let's wrap it up for today. We've reached the point of death. Tomorrow we will dive into what we know right after. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.